Hello everybody, are we on? Yeah, we are. Hello, and how hot are you all? We're absolutely roasting in here, and hopefully we are the infant feeding team. We can answer some questions about infant feeding, feeding your baby, anything if you're pregnant, if you've had your baby, if you're weaning, if you're trying to stop breastfeeding, anything at all that you're worried about, this is what we're here for. So do direct lots and lots of questions, big, small, silly, whatever, serious, direct them to us, and we'll hopefully be able to answer your questions. And I hope you're managing with this warmth. And the baby skin to skin is very interesting in this weather, isn't it? I feel like I'm a bit low down here.
I know, I was just going to leave it actually. I'll just, if I can leave it a tiny bit.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sitting right down on the sofa.
That's where we had it last time, though.
You're sick now with that moving around, aren't you?
Yeah, that's where we had it last time, though.
On a cushion.
Whoops, sorry folks. That's not very clever of me.
It goes on the one bit above. So we're in
be even
on level
lower.
7 at the John Radcliffe Maternity Hospital today. We're in one of their rooms. And we again have lovely views of the sunshine and everything else. That looks a bit better, doesn't it? Don't feel quite so low down now.
It's great you didn't mouse at the cushion.
I was thinking the same. So we've had a very busy week. They've had a very busy week of maternity with lots and lots and lots and lots of babies, and I think we've had lots of calls from everybody about babies being unsettled and what should they do. So we thought we'd talk about how you're coping with babies in this heat, because there isn't really an answer. We feel awful because it's hot and we can't sleep, and we're sweaty, and so are your babies, and they're feeding more because they want more to drink. You're drinking more because you want more to drink, and so everything that you'd expect to happen will be happening, that you'll be hot and your baby will be hot, and probably crying a little bit more than normal because they just feel a bit miserable. I think what you do, so you feed more. You don't need to give your babies anything other than breast milk when you're breastfeeding.
Even in this weather.
Even in this weather, because your breast milk is 80% water. So they get lots and lots and lots and lots of fluid, and what you find probably at the beginning of this heat wave was that your baby started to feed a bit more in the day, and then maybe over the next day or two you've suddenly noticed your breast might have got a little bit more milk as the baby started to suckle more, and so they put the order in and you make them more milk. So you will maybe find at the end of this spell, when it cools down a bit, that you've got more milk than you had a week ago. So just keep feeding. That's the answer, is just keep feeding, and to make sure that your babies are weeing and pooing appropriately. So you're looking for at least 6 to 8 wet nappies a day if your baby's over 5 days old. If it's a bit less than that, then they will be doing appropriate to their age. So if it's day 1, probably 1, day 2, maybe two wet nappies, day 3, 2 to 3 wet nappies, etc. 3 to 4 on day 4, and then by day 5 you should be doing about 6 wet nappies a day, and that should continue. So if you're seeing nice wet nappies and beyond day 5, if you're not sure, put a couple of tablespoons of water in one of your nappies and see how it feels, and is your baby doing about that much per pee, and are you seeing plenty? And if not, you might need to feed your baby a little bit more often. So at least 8 times in 24 hours, but actually most babies that are breastfed feed between 8 and 13 times in 24 hours, and that might go up a little tiny bit more with your baby being unsettled and warm, and it may be that they're crying more because they're just uncomfortable and they're hot, and you don't know what to do. You think they aren't getting enough, so the first go-to is you think, well, actually I need to give something else to them because they're obviously thirsty and hungry. So you shouldn't need to. If all of those things are happening, you're seeing lots of pees and your baby's doing 2 poos a day, 2 yellow poos a day if you're breastfeeding, then you're doing the right thing. But if you feel your baby's unwell, that's different, and your instincts will know that. Probably you'll be able to see that your baby's not right. But actually, an unsettled baby is not uncommon in this weather, and they may be, very unhappy. So how do you deal with that? It's hard carrying them in a sling, but it's probably a good idea to take them for a walk in the cool of the morning, and in the evenings maybe you can get out and have a little walk, but carry them skin to skin. And that keeps them cooler. I know it sounds a bit odd, but if your baby is cool, skin to skin warms them, and if they're warm, skin cools them. So it does benefit them, and I know you probably feel very hot with your babies slipping up and down on you, but actually it does make a difference. So you know, just step outside and take a deep breath. You know, you have cool showers because that will help keep you comfortable, and your baby may want a warm bath or something if it's feeling a bit miserable. It might cool your baby down just like it will cool you down if you have a bath, or you know, you cool yourself down, but not cold baths obviously, but a normal body temperature bath for a baby, just a normal temperature, but it will cool your baby down and make them feel more relaxed if you offer them that sort of comfort. Sit in the shade. Don't let them go out in the sunshine. Keep them in the shade, keep them covered, and use sun cream on your babies and cover them up appropriately.
I think one of the things you sometimes see, which is definitely is to recommend that you don't do, is putting a cloth over the pram, because there isn't enough air movement. It's much better to have a parasol over the pram, because the area with underneath gets too hot. It's a bit like being in a tent. You know how hot a tent can be. So please don't put a muslin over the pram or anything. I know you're shading them, but find another way of shading them, because the temperature within the pram gets really hot. I've had a few comments come through, Naomi. We've been doing sterling
If
efforts.
you're bottle feeding, you shouldn't need to give your baby anything.
That's the first
fluid.
question.
Yeah.
That is the first question
really?
we've had, yeah. So Kim has said, my baby's 5 weeks old tomorrow. I'm formula feeding in this heat. She seems to want to be fed all the time. Is it okay to give a sip of cool boiled water between feeds, because I think she may be thirsty? And it's interesting, Kim, because I've actually sat here having a quick peek to see what most people say, because we normally would say you don't need to, but actually NCT do actually suggest that you might want to think about giving a little bit of cool boiled water to your baby if they're a formula fed baby in this warmth. So NCT would corroborate it. I can't find anything else on here.
I think you know, you just need to make sure you're not replacing it.
Yeah.
With the food that you're giving, so that they get so full with water that they miss out on nutritious feed. So I think do it very sensibly, but they shouldn't have anything other than cool boiled water if you're going to do it. And it may be that it's after you've given them a feed and they're a bit unsettled. You could try something like that just after they've had a feed to see if they're just a little bit more thirsty, and that might settle them. And it's the same rules. Are they peeing and pooing appropriately? So, you know, if they're very constipated, it may be that they're a little bit dehydrated, and if their pees are a bit more concentrated, it's exactly the same whether you're giving breast milk or formula. But just boiled water if it's your baby's getting formula, if you feel that they're not getting enough fluid, or they're looking like they're not peeing as much as they should.
I see lots of faces appearing now up there. That's lovely. Got lots of people watching today. We're all hiding from the heat.
And you might find that you're giving slightly more volumes to your babies that are formula feeding as well. Just make sure you do the dilution right when you're making up the feeds, that you put the right amount in for the right, don't make it slightly more dilute or anything. Make exactly the right decision, and make one up at a time. And particularly if you're giving babies food in a bottle, make sure it's only out for a little while. It's not out for a long time in this hot weather, because of the bacterial multiplication in it, that it could you know, go off more quickly. So really scrupulous keeping things clean and using them immediately, and then disposing of them when you've finished the feed, so that they're not getting it you know, a long time after they've had their feed. Very important. That's what breast milk and with formula.
Charlotte's put a message up. She says, hi Alex and Naomi, hope you're both well, and I have my first doctor's appointment on the 30th to get the ball rolling with her new baby, and Alicia keeps rubbing my tummy. Lol, she's very excited. How exciting. Oh, well done, Charlotte. It's lovely to hear from you.
Lathered in love.
Yeah. Laurie Betty has said, hi Alex and Naomi, I just wanted to tell you both how grateful I am for your live sessions. Your dedication to what you do really shines through. Thank you so much for your amazing words. They uplift me every time I watch you. You know, when you start reading these, you never know what you're going to get, and it's so lovely.
That's such a nice thing to write.
There's a lot of family pressure and wrong information, which is overwhelming. Your advice always calms me as I feel comfortable with them. I guess this is a mother's instinct. Thank you. And I think we should never underestimate your own instinct on what is right and what isn't right when it comes to your baby. And I think that goes back to this whole thing. We're always talking about relationship building and responsiveness, and having that time close with your baby is absolutely crucial for them, for their bonding. You all know about that, but their brain development too. It's so important. Every time you interact with your baby, and I'm sure those who've listened to this before will think, oh, here goes Alex again. But every time you interact with your baby, every time you stroke them, you cuddle them, you talk to them, you look into their eyes, you sing them a song, you're boosting their oxytocin levels because of that interaction, and that's growing their brain, and that's growing their trust in you and their knowledge that you're going to meet their needs, that will help your baby grow up into a happy baby, a happy toddler, and a happy adult. So don't ever underestimate how important it is to have that relationship. And you mentioned, Laurie Betty, about families. You know, unfortunately, we do live in a culture where people still talk about spoiling babies and things. You can't spoil a baby. You cannot cuddle your baby too much. You cannot love your baby too much. It is not possible. That we are just high-performing primates, and all other primates do not put their babies down for the first couple of years. So keeping your babies close, even in this hot weather, is very, very important for their development. So Laurie Betty, thank you for that. That was really lovely. Thank you. Rachel's come on saying, hello again, and sorry for the essay. I have a good supply and think baby is feeding fairly efficiently. However, at nearly 6 weeks old, he's still feeding an average of 21 times a day, not actually increased with the hot weather. He only feeds from one side each feed, and the breast feels a lot emptier, but not completely drained. I know there's lots of milk, as I can hand express 130 mils bottles in about 10 minutes for donation. Wow. 130 mils in 10 minutes. Don't tell everybody. I'd be so jealous. Just after a morning feed, mostly from the side he didn't feed from, and this still doesn't empty my breast completely, but the flow has slowed down by the end. He's growing super fast too, and in 3 to 6 months clothes already, and did just fit into newborn ones at birth. Has lots of wet and dirty nappies, so I know he's drinking lots. Do I need to accept it that I will be feeding at this frequency for potentially a long period of time, or is it likely to decrease sometime soon? Just want to know what I need to get my head around. It was really emphasised to me how often he is feeding when I met up with 5 other babies who all had 1 feed while we were out, and he had 3. P.S. All your sessions are super helpful, but I don't know if it would be possible to add descriptions of main topics discussed in each video to YouTube, as there are so many it's hard to find relevant information without just watching them all. Not every question asked, but sometimes you've had the bigger topics you talk about. Yes, starting at the bottom of that list, yes, we talked about trying to get headline topics, haven't we, Naomi?
I think it's proving quite difficult to do it on YouTube in the forum that we're doing this on. And I agree, it's very, very difficult to pick them all out and know what we're talking about. I don't know how we'll get around that, but we'll look into it again and take that on board, absolutely.
So the 21 times a day,
I think maybe revisit your positioning and attachment. It sounds to me that you could possibly get your baby slightly deeper. I know we talk about this all the time, don't we?
But it's because it's the key to what we do.
Absolutely is the key to looking. So can you get somebody to, did you say your baby was 6 weeks old?
Yeah, I think so. Let me have a quick peek. Yeah, 6 weeks.
So well done. That's a lot of weeks. That's 40 days. That's lots, isn't it?
Weeks. 6.
It's like lifetime, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've done very well. But you could probably have room for improvement, because we always say that there is always room for improvement in breastfeeding. Always room for improvement. So I think let's revisit positioning and attachment and just have a look at what you're doing. Get somebody to film you or photograph you breastfeeding, and look at where your baby is in the breast, and just see if your baby's coming up to the breast in the right place to start with the way that your breast is lying. So if your breast is like that.
He's 6 weeks on Sunday. Rachel's just come back.
How lovely. So if your breast is like that, then your baby will be like that on your tummy. So he'll be across your tummy like that, and hopefully you can see that. Now if your breast is up there, then your baby will be further up like that. If your breast is like that, then your baby will be like that. So you see I've moved him round to face the breast. And if your breast is like that, then your baby will come up right up there. And that's the first rule in breastfeeding, is that you work with the angle of your dangle.
Yeah.
So get get somebody to photograph what you're doing, not looking at somebody else's on YouTube, because that doesn't work. You've got to look at what your anatomy is like.
Or sit by a mirror.
Sit by a mirror, yeah, whatever. Just have a look at what your breast does, because if you're putting your baby on in the wrong direction, it's not going to get a good latch. And what happens if your breast is like that, and you're going like that with your baby rather than like that, when he pauses, he's going to lose the latch a little bit. The breast will come out of his mouth slightly or frequently fall off. That's what happens when babies aren't quite on with the angle. So you need to turn your baby round to be looking at you. So if your breasts are dangling down, which most women's are, quite frankly, you should probably see both of his eyes looking at you when you're breastfeeding. But if your breasts are up here, you might only see his profile, so one eye. So have a good look at what's happening there. That's the first rule, to make sure that you're fixed with your baby in the right place when you start breastfeeding, because that is the key to it. And then the next key is to line him up properly. Do you want to show that picture, Alex, while I'm holding the dog? So it's just making sure that you take your baby to the breast and line him up in the right position. So if we turn it around and
go to that one,
yeah.
Nose to nipple.
So nose to nipple. So you're lining your baby up with its nose in the right place to start with, and then when your baby lifts its head back, because the head is always free, remember, your hands are on the back of the shoulders. Imagine
Find the right one.
You're having your hair done and you're having a shampoo and set, and you've got your head on your neck on the bowl. That's where you need to put your hands to support your baby's neck. Your neck is very well supported when you lie back like that, as is your baby's when you hold your baby like this. You shouldn't need to do that, because they don't actually lift their head back when they're doing that to get a big mouthful. So you line them up in the right way, then they lift their head back and they open their mouth and they scoop the breast up from the chin. So they chin hits the breast first.
It's this way, because it's a really clear picture.
They scoop the breast up and the nipple just skims the top of their gum. The top gum, just below the hard palate, and it skims over that and goes to the top of the back of the roof of the mouth. So you're imagining that nipple is going into their nose space. It's not going down. So what a lot of mums are doing, and we see this all the time, is that they put the nipple into the baby's mouth. So they literally go like that and put the nipple on the tongue. And if you look at that picture, it's completely opposite. It's completely opposite. Your nipple is going up, and this hand doesn't move. So this hand and this baby moves to the breast. So you don't want to be doing that, which is what most mums do. You want to hold this breast absolutely still and where it lives, and then you lift the baby onto the breast from the chin up. So you're going up from the shoulders in a line. So you're going up like that. You're not hooking it over and down. You're literally going up onto the breast. You're pushing from the shoulders, from the shoulder blades, from the base of the neck onto the breast. Literally, it's a very short distance, and it's it's a very straight direction.
So on this picture you can see the mum's thumb is here, and she's literally just going to push her baby on in that movement.
There's no hooking, so she's not nose diving.
She's not doing this.
Yeah.
She's doing straight on.
And that's the key to putting a baby on the breast properly, is getting all of those things right, because if you don't, if you're pushing the nipple down with your hand, because that's the instinct that mothers have, you're putting a bottle in the mouth, and that's the imprint that most mothers have got to breastfeed, is that they're putting something in their baby's mouth. That must stay still, and the baby comes to the breast. So that's the first thing that you really need to visit to look at, to make sure that all of those things are in place before you're even breastfeeding. If you do that, most other things follow and everything lines up, and then your baby gets onto the breast more deeply. You've got to make sure that your baby's chin is under here, so that the breastfeeding is here, not central. You don't want it to be like that, you want it to be like that. So your baby should have its mouth on the breast, not near the nipple. If your baby's feeding like that, it probably will feed 21 times a day, because it's not being able to milk the breast and get the fatty milk out as well as it can. And when they do that, they they usually feed frequently. They get lots of lactose, which is the milk that's in the breast, the fore milk, or the waterier milk. It's not waterier, it just looks waterier. It's got less fat in it because it's the milk at the beginning of the feed. It's full of lactose, which is sugar. So babies tend to feed lots and lots and lots because they don't get chocolate pudding, they don't get the fat, but also they don't feel full. So they need to feed frequently because they feel hungry a lot, but they get loads and loads of calories, and you get lots and lots of milk because you're stimulating the breast all the time by feeding it just on the nipple end. So you want to just start to try and put that attachment right. If you don't know, go and get some support. Either your health visitor can watch your baby feed, or you can try one of the local support groups. So Abington Baby Cafe, OBS. You can, if you can get an appointment with them, just to see if they can watch your positioning. Or if you've got a friend who is really good at breastfeeding as well, and she's worked it in a different way, her baby's maybe a bit more settled that you've met up with, see what she does. Ask if you can watch how she breastfeeds her baby.
Rachel's come on, same thing. I think he does have a fairly deep attachment with his mouth wide and chin a long way down.
Brilliant.
It might be just a millimetre here or there.
Very
it's amazing.
subtle.
It's amazing how just a tiny change can make a big difference. So it would be worth checking, Rachel, just because, I mean, 21 feeds a day is an awful lot. Awful lot. So, yeah.
You know, just see if you can get some support to get a feed watched, to make sure it's absolutely brilliant, because you just tuck them around a millimetre and they can put on a different, completely different picture in the breastfeeding and their behaviour. They're often much happier if they get the right mix of feed, and much less unsettled, and go for longer between feeds. Some women have got less breast capacity, but you sound like you've got lots of milk with the pumping you're doing. You talked about pumping, haven't you? So it sounds like you've already got lots and lots of milk. So, it's not that your breast capacity is low, which is normal for some mothers, but some babies do feed more frequently than the others because the mothers can't hold as much milk in their breasts as some other women, but it's not normally related to size, it's just breast capacity generally. But it doesn't sound that doesn't sound like that's the case for you, because you've got lots of milk there when you're pumping. So that would be that your baby might feed 13 times a day, and a baby that's got lots of breasts, that's got lots of capacity, and a baby might feed less than that, maybe 8. Sometimes even 6 times a day, but that's not normal for babies to feed 6 times a day. It's normally 8 to 13. But you've got to look at the whole picture. Is your baby happy? Peeing and pooing?
Gaining weight?
All of those things as well. And are you happy with it? And I think that that's very important as well. If you're not happy, then you need to get some support. Absolutely you do. I hope that's answered you, and I hope you didn't feel it was patronising us going through the positioning and attachment again, because we always say there's room for improvement with positioning and attachment, even if it appears to be brilliant, and we can always find something that we can tweak. So we always go back to that with everybody, just back to the basics, because it does sometimes make a big difference.
Absolutely. I haven't got any more questions at the moment, so I think with the COVID rates rising, we were just thinking that if you haven't already watched Brenda Kelly's videos that are out there, available on the website, that it would be well worth looking. Brenda Kelly is one of our consultant obstetricians, and she's done a number of videos over the last year about the vaccination and mothers that are pregnant or breastfeeding. So I would highly recommend that if you haven't already had the vaccine, that you go and have a look at her videos, because she's giving the most up-to-date information. And obviously with the rates rising, we do have a whole cohort of women out there who for one reason or another have not had the vaccine, and obviously it does put you all at risk if you haven't, but obviously it's obviously your choice, but it is well worth going and listening to what Brenda has got to say on the subject, and she's up to date with the latest information and any research that there is about it. So if you've got any if you haven't had it and you want to know a bit more about it, go and have a look and see what Brenda Kelly's been writing. Been saying, because it was a video, it was very accessible, very useful.
I think the other thing is we got asked this week about a young girl that's got COVID positive at 37 weeks pregnant, and can she hand express and collect and harvest colostrum? Well, we know that there isn't any passing of the virus on to babies from somebody that's got COVID in breastfeeding. We know that it doesn't transfer to the baby, but what we do know is that antibodies do, and that your baby is protected. So we say, you know, continue to collect the colostrum, and it will be okay to give that colostrum to your baby. Probably something that we wouldn't suggest is that if you've got colostrum that you collected when you were COVID positive, don't bring it into the hospital with you, leave it at home. And maybe if you're well and you're got over it, so say you're 37 weeks and you have your baby in 3 to 4 weeks time, you won't be COVID positive anymore, then you can do some hand expressing and bring the colostrum in where you weren't COVID positive to the hospital if you need to bring a little bit in. But we don't recommend anyone brings lots of colostrum that they've harvested with them into hospital, because we don't want you to lose it, or you know, for it to defrost and then you can't use it after you know, sort of 24 hours.
Yeah, we always say on this, we've said it numerous times, that we do have an issue with storage,
Yeah.
and it's best if it stays with you. So as much as possible, keep it with you.
Just so it's very fresh on mine whether any more questions come up, whether it's just not refreshing for you.
I can refresh it again.
Yeah, I don't think there is, no. So everyone's very quiet
Yeah.
outside in the sunshine, aren't they?
Well, there's quite a few people watching, so I can see how many are on. So,
but you know,
water.
it's absolutely packed. Well, colostrum is absolutely packed with antibodies anyway. So if you know, you've got all of that as well. But if you have had COVID positive, or you are COVID positive when you have your baby, the advice that we give you is that you continue to breastfeed. That you continue to breastfeed, and that will protect your baby from the virus. It will give you antibodies, your baby antibodies in the breast milk from the virus. So we know that transmission doesn't happen through breast milk. So carry on breastfeeding, and if you're too unwell to breastfeed, to manage your baby, or you know, if you have your baby with you, wear a mask. If you have COVID, you must wear a mask near you when you're feeding your baby. But also, if you're feeling too unwell, then use a pump as well, so that you can express milk and give your baby milk in a bottle if you're too unwell to breastfeed and you can't have your baby close to you. And think about, you know, if you want someone to help you express, think about giving somebody that role in your family that you would be happy and feel comfortable for them to support you if that was the case, if you're too unwell to do it.
Right. Oh, sorry,
we got more questions.
Yes, we've got a few more coming through.
So if you've got any questions about that, you're not sure, or if you have got COVID positive and you're not sure about breastfeeding, then do either call us independently on our landline, you know, on the phone to us, or if you don't mind sharing, then share the questions. But you know, it will protect your baby if you have got COVID, but you need to wear a mask while you're breastfeeding your baby and your baby's close to you. But keep producing the milk, keep pumping, keep producing the milk, because it's a lifesaver for babies as well. It's you know, it's good stuff, and it's always good stuff.
Your body's so clever because it chucks all the antibodies in it.
Yeah.
Emma has written and said, my daughter's 9 weeks old. She had a tongue-tied cut privately recently, which improved her latching a lot. But they also said she had a high palate. They didn't really explain how a high palate can affect feeding. How does it if it does? So that's quite interesting. So I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about. I used my hand actually. Can I grab a breast? And I'll just do. So if you think about, we always talk about how important it is to get that really good attachment. And if you think about my hand, I kneel a bit closer. My hand is the baby's mouth, and this is a normal palate. The baby goes on with the nipple right at the top of the mouth, and baby scoops the breast back with its tongue and puts the nipple up against that lovely soft palate, like the cushion. We talk about a cushion for the nipple so it's not damaged, and the baby feeds like this. If you have a high palate, so if you imagine it's up here, then actually what happens sometimes is not quite enough goes in, so the nipple gets stuck up there, and then it's damaged because it's stuck up in the high palate because it doesn't go in far enough. So when we're helping mothers, sometimes what we'll do is we'll do what's called tipping the nipple, and it allows more of the nipple to go in. So if I was supporting a mother, I would have her to put her hand here, so the baby's going to come on here, and I would get her to tip the nipple. You can see that nipple comes right up. Trying to get my hand out of the way, so it tips up. And so rather than facing the baby going on there, the baby goes on and gets this, and it gets a little bit more, and that allows the baby to catapult a little bit more breast in, so it goes right up back against the soft palate. So rather than going on here, it goes on and it takes a bit more in. So tipping the nipple can be really helpful. But the thing to bear in mind is if you're feeding, which it sounds like you are, and it's getting better, then the bones of the palate are soft, like warm wax, and over time having your lovely big breasts in there will bring those down, and the palate will become more shallow over time with feeding. So that will really help. So that's the impact it can have.
I think sometimes you've got to look at your own anatomy, and if you put your thumb in your mouth, does it go a long way up, or is it like a little rainbow? We sort of say, is it like a rainbow, or is it like a cathedral roof, where it goes right up into the roof space, and it's a really high palate. And if you've got one, the chances are your baby's going to have one as well. And it's a variation of normal. Here, normal. Here, normal. Because it is a variation of normal. It's like nose shape, it's like fingers, it's like feet. It's like any other part of your baby's body. It's going to be normal for your baby. It's just that you've got to work around it. Like all the other things, you know, if you've got big feet, you've got to go somewhere that makes big shoes. If you've got narrow feet, you've got to get somewhere that does narrow shoes. And if you've got a high palate, you just learn to breastfeed with your palate the way it is. It is a variation of normal. It is not a disability or a problem for your baby. It's just that you have to adapt what you're doing. And as Alex said, the flip the nipple, tip the nipple up, is a way of pushing it right up.
Taking a little bit more.
Normal. It's normal. So you know, you work with what your baby's born with. If you've got a high palate, the chances are your baby will have one too, because that's genetics for you.
We often see it goes hand in hand with a tongue tie, don't we?
It does quite often. But it
think
may be that you've got a tongue tie that you don't know about, because babies have got tongue ties. And we did talk about that last week, didn't we?
And I think just reminding people that, you know, tongue tie does come up, it's a hot topic. You know, tongue tie is all a variation on normal. If you are struggling with feeding, it is one of the things we will look at. So if you're out there having problems with feeding and, you know, you feel you need some support, just get in touch. As we've said on these things, we will talk. We can see you up to 6 weeks. After that, we dovetail into the health visiting service, and they have their own trained up infant feeding supporters, their enhanced breastfeeding support group. I know they're struggling with personnel, but they do have some people there to do that. But we will do everything we can to see you in those first 6 weeks if you are struggling with feeding. And looking at a tongue tie or frenulum is one of the things we'll do alongside positioning and attachment. And if it is a tongue tie, we will refer you if that's appropriate and that's what you want.
But I think, you know, you have to be really careful, because if you're told on day one that your baby has got a tongue tie, you can't hear anything else. You think that's the problem. But the crucial thing is that you get your attachment absolutely tip-top. Nothing can beat that. Nothing can improve on that. And if you have your baby's tongue tie cut and you've still got poor positioning and attachment, you're going to have the same problems afterwards as well. You've got to get that positioning right before you snip, so that when you've had it snipped, if it needs doing, then everything is in place to improve things. But if you don't get that right, you're going to have the same problems afterwards. It's not going to go away. It's never a magic wand having a tongue tie snipped. What is a magic wand is improving positioning and attachment, and that's hard because it takes practice. But you have to get it right first, and then your baby's tongue will start to work properly, and for all the reasons we've talked about, that they can stretch their tongue on the floor of the mouth, the palate is full, the cheeks are full, and the vacuum in the baby's mouth is sealed. And if there's lots of gaps because the baby's not on deeply enough or have enough of an asymmetrical latch, the pressure in the mouth is wrong and the baby can't transfer milk, and it'll click and it'll slurp and it'll fall off, and won't get enough food. It'll not gain quite enough weight, and your milk supply will go down, and that's not tongue tie, that's positioning and attachment. If your baby has a tongue that is tethered, it may find it more difficult to feed, but if it's given the opportunity to feed, it may improve, and that then will say, actually, you don't need to do anything else, even if there's a tongue tie there. You know, nearly everybody's got a tongue tie. If you can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not a problem. Often they're more of a problem than the ones you can really see, which you're normally told about by a healthcare professional on their birthday or the next day or the day after that. They say, oh, your baby's got a tongue tie. They're the ones that tend to be less of a problem than the ones that you can't see.
Which is why we see people later on with lots of problems.
Yeah, because nobody thinks that there is a tongue tie there because they say there isn't a tongue tie. But actually, you need a trained eye. You need somebody who knows what they're looking at. You need somebody that is trained to do an oral assessment, and you need someone to watch a really good feed at least 2 times before you make a decision. And work on your attachment and the way that your baby's feeding in order to make that assessment. And so just looking down at your baby in the cot is not going to tell you that your baby's got a tongue tie that is of any significance at all. And even if we've looked at them, we won't say yes or no it's a problem until we've watched your baby have a really good feed or not. And then we will discuss it and say, come back and practice, go away and practice, come back in a week or in a couple of weeks if it's no better. We very rarely tell you to go and get the tongue tie cut immediately. It's unusual for us to do that.
Luckily though, for Emma, it worked for her, so that was really good.
And there are very good reasons to have them cut.
Absolutely.
We do send babies to have their tongue ties cut, but a lot don't need it because positioning is not tip top. So you've got to get help with your positioning first before you make that decision. And don't let the tongue tie word get in the way of the help that you need for positioning and attachment. You can see anybody in the breastfeeding course. So midwife, health visitor, nursery nurse, volunteer services, they can all help you with positioning and attachment before you see a specialist to help with a tongue tie. So don't let that get in the way. Get really good breastfeeding support first, and then come and see somebody who can assess after you've had some really good positioning and attachment help, because it will help you in the long run.
Right, well, Olivia's put a question up. It's quite an unusual one actually. When I was in hospital, I was lucky enough to be supported by the infant feeding team due to having a complicated pregnancy and then some issues of feeding. When we were discharged, we were given some donor milk, which we do on occasion, to take home with us. But due to all the pumping I did in hospital, I went into overdrive and ended up having so much milk when home so as not to need the donor milk. It's still sealed and frozen in our freezer. Is this something the milk bank would take back or in return, or could I donate my own milk in the future? Thank you. I think once the milk has gone home, we can't take it back actually, Olivia. I will check, but I believe that's the case, and I can find your notes and let you know if there is a change to that. But if you want to donate, that would be the best present ever. So it would be absolutely wonderful if you are able to donate as well. And that's what happens very often, is people have had the benefit of a bit of donated milk, whether it's been on the wards or in exceptional circumstances. We've sent people home with a little bit like we did with you. Then actually donating back is the best thing you can do. It's your best thank you.
And the DBM that you've got may be out of date. It hasn't got a very long shelf life, so it may be, and it doesn't say how long ago you were with us.
I recognise your name, so not that long ago.
No, and it may be that its shelf life is coming to the end. It's tragic, isn't it? But yes, I don't think we can, but we can always ask and just see what they say. But we're assuming that that it won't be, and they wouldn't then repasteurize it because it would affect the composition of the milk if they heated it too many times.
I seem to have lost a message. I've got someone telling me that they've posted a message and I've missed it. A quick peek. I'm really sorry if that's the case.
But yes, we just love anybody that wants to donate breast milk. If they've got any at all, they can contact Amanda Wood. So it's amanda.wood@ouh.nhs.uk, or the information is on the infant feeding JR website. So if you go into Women's Services, John Radcliffe Hospital Maternity, and put in donated breast milk or breastfeeding or infant feeding team, it'll come up and there'll be a link for donating breast milk there with a link to Amanda, who will send you information. I think there's a form that you can take and fill out and send back to her, and she will get in touch with you. And it's very, very easy. You have to have blood tests done again because it's nice guide compliant, so it has to be, we used to just take it from your antenatal bloods, but we have to now take bloods again, even if you've just recently had them done as a person that's had a baby in our trust, but we have to redo them. And either your midwife, or if you've still got your midwife, or your GP can do those, or you can come into hospital and have them done if you want to. And then you get a kit and the instructions on how to collect your milk, and then a man comes, or a woman comes on a motorbike and picks it up in a freezer box and takes it away. So it involves very little other than you just producing the milk. So and then they put it into pasteurization, and they test it before, they test it after, and it goes through many rigorous tests before it's put out for use with babies on the neonatal unit or on the postnatal ward.
Helen, you've put up that I've missed your question very nicely, not letting anyone else to. I'm really sorry I can't see it, and I think you're right. I think it's been lost somehow when I was reloading, because I've gone back where you've said it was. Please can you resend your question, Helen? I'll reset this as well and we'll answer it for you.
I don't think they were loading, were they? For
No,
that's
exactly what Helen said. She said, posted a question further up after Rachel's first comment, but not sure if it's been lost when your comments weren't loading. So I've just been back.
Because it's very unusual for us not to get questions, so
Yeah.
occasionally they don't load, but normally it's none of them load rather than just a few and then it
Yeah.
stops.
I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind sending it again. Sorry, Helen. Sorry, it's an effort, I know. While we wait for that, and I'll refresh again in a second, we'll do this one. So Leanne's come on. Hi Emma, I missed she's replying to something that Emma's written. I missed the answer to your question, but my 16-week-old daughter also has a hyper, and we've had a rocky feeding journey. So send me a message if you want to talk more about it. Thank you, Leanne. That's lovely.
Palate buddies, that's
yeah,
great.
that's great. That's really nice.
That's what it's all about.
Right, I'm going to see if I refresh this. I'm going to come out and go back in and see if I can see Helen's question.
It is really frustrating when you know that it's not going to plan, but actually most people manage to work it out eventually, and it's lovely to hear that Leanne's had a rocky journey but got through it, and it does take perseverance. And I think I was talking to somebody in clinic today, you know, that it is very easy just to say, well, I'm not going to do it anymore, but you know, the investment that you put in the first few weeks often tips you to think, actually, I'm just absolutely so bloody minded, I'm not going to let anybody stop me breastfeeding now, because I've worked so hard to get to where I am, and it's so important to you. And we do know that you know, nipple pain particularly is a real big driver for postnatal depression in women, and so it's so crucial that you get help when you need help, and get help quickly. You know, we sadly get emails and calls from mothers that are over 6 weeks, just over 6 weeks, and they didn't know we were around, they didn't know that they could get help earlier. And so if you've got friends that have babies, spread the love, you know, tell people where they can get information from, where they can get help from, and get them to do it quickly, so that they're not sitting there and then 7 weeks later they call because they just think, one more day too many. You know, they've said one more day, and that's what breastfeeding is. It's one day that it goes, oh well, that's not so bad today, I can manage, and then you have an awful day the next day, and then you think, well, I'll call somebody tomorrow and it's not too bad, so you think, I'll leave it one more day.
I think we'd much rather you phoned us, booked an appointment, and
cancelled,
and then cancelled because it's going well. They're the most lovely calls we get. I'd like to cancel my appointment because everything's going really well. It makes our day, because that's just wonderful.
And you know, in this climate we have got a little bit of a waiting list to see us, because we do 2 clinics a week.
Yeah.
We see about 12 people a week, so we're not full because we are human and we can't see that many people. It takes a while, it's an hour for an appointment. It's about 2 weeks, 10 days for an appointment at the moment to see us. So, you know, if you're struggling, don't leave it and do it, I'll do it next week. Ring this week and get an appointment booked, and then you can cancel it. We'd much rather it that way around.
Right, I've got a pile more questions, so I'm really hoping Helen's going to come through, because I have looked and looked and I can't find it. I'm so sorry, Helen, please pop it through again. Robin has said, I'm currently 39 plus 5 and patiently waiting for baby to arrive. I've been told to collect colostrum and freeze it, which I've been doing. I just wanted to know, how much would you advise I need to collect before baby arrives, and how often a day do I do it? So we tend to say 4 times a day maximum, don't need to do any more than that. And if you've got some already, they're like, you just don't need to do much more. It's really learning the skill is the best thing you can be doing. It isn't going to impact on your supply. Doing hand expressing at this stage is a buffer, it's a bonus. Everything you do after your baby is born has an impact on your supply. What you do prior to your baby being born has no impact on your supply at all, apart from giving you a bit of colostrum to go into it. And we would normally recommend it for mothers who've got diabetes. So if a mother has diabetes, then their baby's going to be checked when the baby's born. Their blood sugars will be checked, like the mother checks her own blood sugars in the first day or so. And actually having some colostrum ready to give is really, really helpful. If you know your baby might have to go to the special care baby unit, having colostrum is always beneficial. And anyone who might be having, not in your case, a premature baby, it is well worth having a bit of colostrum that you maybe express during the labour. So there are advantages to having it, but it's not an obligation at all. And now you've got the skill, and if you've got a fair few syringes, you probably could stop. So, I hope that helps, Robin.
It's up to you. It's up to you how long you do it for, and you know, if you're niggling a little bit, get on and do some hand expressing, because it might tip you into labour. So if you're sort of having quite a few Braxton Hicks, then do a little bit of hand expressing. It may just be what you need to tip the oxytocin levels up a little bit, which is why we say don't do it before your 37 weeks, because if you are a bit niggly, you don't want to tip yourself into labour before your 37 weeks. So we recommend that you don't do it beyond 37 weeks. So it's a great skill to learn though, and it makes a huge difference. And all the staff in the hospital that are working with mums in the newborn days say it makes such a difference to them if they've got the skill when they come into hospital. The mums can get on with it, and they can express and feed their babies while they're learning to breastfeed, and you can protect your milk supply. You can ensure that you're going to get your milk coming in, because you're doing lots and lots of stimulations as much as you can in the early days, because that's the one that secures your supply. And the staff all come back to us and say it makes such a difference when they know what they're doing for them, that they know that you're just going to get on with it when they're so busy. They've been so busy this week, and if any of you have been in hospital this week, you will know that it was absolutely frantic. The hot weather did not stop when we were going into labour this week. So having that skill puts you on your front foot. It really gives you ahead of the game in the fact that you are able to get on with it and give your baby food if the staff are really struggling to get to see you quickly. So don't underestimate how powerful it is to have that skill before you arrive.
So Alice has got a question. Hello ladies, my baby is 2 months old and exclusively breastfed. I have a question about his poo. I've noticed that it's very often has a green poo with stringy bits in it rather than the usual yellow mustard with little seed-like bits. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for what could be the cause? He did have a tongue tie which has been cut and is generally feeding. He's generally feeding and growing really well, thank you. Can be just the odd feed that isn't quite as perfect. If they've been snacking, you can end up with a greeny poo.
A busy morning.
Yeah. So it's down to that. We talk about getting that really good mouthful, and they get that lovely balance of the waterier beginning part of the feed and the fattier part, latter part of the feed, which is a very gentle migration, and it's all down to the baby's ability to really milk the breast. And sometimes if they're just not on quite as well, or they are doing a bit of snacking, they might get a bit more of that for that sort of first part of the milk, and that can result in a green stool. If it's an occasional, if it's an occasional green stool, we don't worry. If it's consistently green stools, then we would be looking to see what the reason was for that. But occasional,
your baby may not be gaining weight if they've got really green mucousy stools. They may not gain as much weight. They may have a little bit of a numpy rash. Sometimes they're a bit spotty with it, and it's normally something else. So, but occasional, as Alex says, is not something that we worry about. It just sometimes is. If they've had lots of cluster feeding, it just might be that. Doesn't sound like it's any concern.
If it is consistent, obviously you have to contact someone. Charlotte says Alicia is waving you both. She's just woken up from a nap. We'll wave back.
She's on playing now.
Look forward to meeting her in the future. Emma has come on. Yes, we did do a lot of work on PNA with OBS before realising there was a tongue tie, and it was a posterior one that wasn't particularly obvious, exactly the point Naomi was making. But function-wise, it was having a big impact, and we do find that, Luckily, I did a lot of pumping too to protect my supply, and we're doing okay, but now want to try to improve the amount of time frequency we're spending on it if we can. I'll try out the nipple tipping and see if that helps. Thank you. Well, Emma, I hope it works for you. You don't want to be feeding that much.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you can see the health visitor team and see if they can help you with positioning and attachment as well, if they can come and see you face to face.
Alice has asked a really interesting question. Mind you, they're all interesting, but this one's an interesting one. Hi, my 2-week-old baby had to go back into hospital and have antibiotics. Should I use prebiotics to help him start his digestion? He's been really scratchy feeding since we got home. What's your verdict on that? I know what I think.
And there is probiotics in breast milk.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's all in breast milk.
It's all in breast milk already. There are probiotics in breast milk, and so your baby will be getting those probiotics in breast milk. Has he got normal stools? Has he got nice yellow poos when he's pooing now? Is that all normal? Because I think that's the most important thing, is his get recovering from the antibiotic treatments, and sometimes they get very runny poos with very sore bottoms. Occasionally, some mums do give their babies probiotics, and you can get special ones for babies, and sometimes mums do say that they are very effective and that it does sort out green poo. Sometimes the baby's poo settles down and becomes yellow again and much less runny. But it's, bear in mind that breast milk is normal, perfect food for babies, and you shouldn't need to have anything else. But say some mums do use them, and you can put little tiny bits on your nipple, and the baby can breastfeed with them, little grains of them on your nipple, if they're the ones especially for babies. But we have no recommendations of any probiotics to buy, and we don't necessarily recommend that you use them.
So yeah, the gut flora is dictated obviously by what the baby's ingesting, and we know that if you give your baby something other than breast milk, it can take a couple of weeks for the gut flora to become back to what it was. So that's what you're thinking about. It is going to take a little while for the gut flora to go back to normal.
A couple of weeks.
But it's things like we talk. People take. And no advertising here, but people drink things like Actimel and Yakult. Well, your breast milk's chock-a-block full of bifidus, which is what's in both of those, and it's all there to promote the best gut flora for your baby. So your breast milk is doing a fantastic job, and there really isn't a need for anything else.
I think the only bit of research that they did do was on premature babies, and they gave it to premature babies in the ITU of the neonatal unit, and that's the only research that they've done, I think, on actively giving probiotics in a positive way to babies. So it's not something that we recommend. But if you read about it and they're for neonates, then that's your choice. But it's not something we recommend, as Alex has said, and he said, there is probiotics, or there are probiotics in your breast milk already. That's the best thing you can do.
So I hope the feeds improve soon, Alex, because you said they've been a bit scratchy. Hopefully they'll get a bit better. Just shows.
Antibiotics,
but thank goodness we have them.
Their routines are changed a little bit when they go into hospital, aren't they? Even if they're babies, they do sense that. So, he would have had, or she would have had lots of stuff done to them, and that's really disturbing for them as well.
Helen's popped her question in now, and I'm so sorry, Helen, I just couldn't see it. Anyway, she says, Theo's had his tongue tie cut yesterday, but is feeding less than usual. Potentially the heat, the fact he's developed a cough and cold, we're COVID negative, or from his tongue. Is there a greater risk that it can reattach? Would introducing a dummy help or hinder at this point? He latched okay straight after the procedure, but the times he's latched since, he hasn't stayed latched for long. He was pretty unsettled last night, but because he's 8 weeks tomorrow, I did clear his nose, give him a bath, and eventually gave him a little cowpole last night. And he did latch and have a small feed in the end. Nappies are still wet and dirty, so not too concerned on that front, just the tongue tie worries.
You've just timed that wrong, haven't you? It's such bad luck that they've got a cold and you've had the tongue tie cut, because actually if you think about when you have a really rotten cold, you don't want to eat or do anything, you just feel really miserable, and you can't suckle because your nose is blocked, and all of those things together with the temperature, he must feel absolutely miserable. So I think little and often, you're not going to go wrong with that, and most babies that have their tongue ties cut can only feed for short periods, and then they fall asleep because the tongue fatigue kicks in very quickly. 48 hours after it's slipped, they become very incoordinate with their suckling. They often don't know what to do because the muscles have kicked out that they used, and the new ones are kicking in, and it's unused muscles, so they get very tired, they get a lot of tongue fatigue, and then gradually over a period of 2 to 4 weeks, and if he's 8 weeks old, I think you said, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's going to be near 4 weeks before you see total improvement with frenulotomy. So it's not going to happen today or tomorrow. It's going to be several weeks away that you start to see improvement. So I don't know if the practitioner told you to do anything with tongue, whether to encourage the tongue to move. So you put your finger on the gum and you move side to side. That encourages the tongue to move side to side. If you touch your baby's tongue with your finger while you're putting it on the gum when they're not crying, and just run your finger backwards and forwards, that will help the tongue move side to side. And try and get them to stick their tongue out by doing it yourselves and getting them to copy you. Sometimes that just keeps tongue mobility going, but nothing can beat good feeding, so it's about really good positioning and attachment. Good feeding is good physio, and that will keep the tongue tie patent. Saying that, if it grows back, it's going to grow back.
Let's hope not.
It's rare that it does. About 4% of tongue ties grow back, but they do it overnight if they're going to, and we do see it occasionally, but not very often. And it's nothing that you've done wrong. It's just that sometimes tongue ties want to be there, and they just come back. So it's nothing you've done if it does happen, but good feeding is good physio, and that's what we encourage you to do. So little and often until your baby's feeling a little bit better. You might even find that the suckling at the breast clears their nasal passages, tends to open the nasal passages up so that they can breathe a bit more easily once they're fed.
I think what you did last night was a great idea, Helen. You cleared his nose and gave him a bath and a bit of Calpol. So I think that's all
you can
really
get some
helped.
baby vig, so snuffle babe or some such, and put a little bit in a hot bowl of water and stick it on the top of a wardrobe or right away from your baby, but in the room, so that it's like a vaporizer, or if you've got a vaporizer for babies with some a sort of anti-congestant type thing, but you don't use anything like Vicks or Olbas oil or anything like that on your baby before 12 weeks, because it can actually make them stop breathing. It can be too strong for them and it puts them into a spasm. So you shouldn't be giving your baby anything other than recommended for babies under 12 weeks, and keep it well away from them if you use that. But sometimes they suggest that, or just going into the bathroom and running the shower and sitting in the bathroom sometimes help them.
Like you're going to want to do that at the moment.
Yes, exactly. Having a steam, or if you've got a steam room in your house, then that's even better. But I think most people feel they've got a steam room in their house at the moment.
Yeah.
But moisture will help massively. Hot steam.
Sorry it took us so long to get back to you on that one, Helen, and I hope that's helped. Alice said she's come back. She's the one with the 2-week-old baby, but she said his baby's exclusively breastfed and gaining weight well, so that's really good news. Just the one that she was asking about probiotics. So you're obviously doing a brilliant job, absolutely the best thing you can
and
do.
the breast milk is doing a brilliant job.
Yeah. Sarah has said, hi ladies, lovely sessions. My baby girl is 18 days old and our feeding journey has been very bumpy so far, but I'm persevering as I really want to master breastfeeding. We've struggled with a painful latch since birth, despite having lots of support from midwives and now health visitors. They say the positioning attachment is good, and I just need to keep practicing, but I don't feel that things are getting better. Sometimes I can achieve an okay latch, but often it's too shallow as I don't think she's opening her mouth wide enough. When she goes to open her mouth, I move her towards the breast, but within the second she seems to have closed her mouth and is latched right on the end rather than the wider gape. So her bottom lip isn't far down enough. So you've got it all. You know what you're trying to do, which is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
I think the clue is
there's more coming. You have to wait.
All right.
I try rubbing the nipple on her lip to get her to open wider, but that doesn't seem to work. She also works her way backwards during the feed to the end of the nipple, despite my feeling like I have pulled her in close to me. And then when I offer her the second breast and she's a bit fuller, she barely makes any effort to open her mouth. So the latch is almost impossible. Despite her giving cues that she's still wanting to feed. She gained weight by day 6 and lots of wet and dirty nappies. Any help would be much appreciated, as this soreness and lack of improvement is really getting me down. Thank you so much. Well, I think it's probably worth having a look and see what's happening there, Sarah. Because I think it sounds like give us a shout to see if we can get you into clinic.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you've obviously put a lot of effort in. 18 days, you've given it a really good try.
And I think one of the things happens is that people wait for the baby to gape and then they move it. So actually when your baby's there, you should be moving it towards the breast, so that when they actually get on the breast, your baby's mouth is at its widest, even if it's not very wide. If you wait until the baby's got a wide mouth and then move your breast to the breast, then it will have closed its mouth by the time it gets to you. So just double check that you're moving your baby to the breast while the mouth is starting to open, not when it's at its widest, because if you do that, it will have closed its mouth before it gets to the breast. So have a little look again and just double check that you're not just got your timing slightly out, and that you're not waiting for the gait before you move. Start moving when the gait starts, not when it's finished. Otherwise you will miss it. And it is a lightning speed sometimes, isn't it? That you have to be really quick and take that baby to the gate as soon as it happens and not miss it. But I think give us a ring.
Yeah, I think so too, because it sounds like you've had loads of support.
Yeah, give us a ring.
Let's see if we can see something that someone else hasn't seen us yet. So anyway, you can find our number on the website or send us an email.
Yep.
Amy has said, do you have any tips for getting my 5-week-old to take a bottle of breast milk? My little girl is refusing to take it in a bottle. Well, she knows where she likes it from.
We get such a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
So many mums say that their babies aren't happy to take a bottle.
We'd normally suggest that you get someone else to give it rather than you. Don't do it when they're desperately hungry, because that doesn't normally work. So maybe you go out. Don't be there, because it's less likely to happen if you are there, because you'll get upset and she'll get upset. And catching them when they're just waking up is a good time, so that they're sort of a bit sleepy. Those are the things that what we'd suggest. After a feed, try the breast and then offer the bottle.
The action of a bottle feed is very different to the action of a breastfeed. So they have to learn. The first time you put a bottle in a baby's mouth, they just throw it round and round and round and spit it out, because they have no idea what to do with it. So it's often perseverance, that they just learn to adapt to that different shape in their mouth, because no matter what you read and what you see, there is nothing that is like a breast that's a nipper that is a teat. Not one single brand of bottle manufacturer will make a breast. It doesn't happen. So do not be sucked into the commercial battle between formula and milk bottle companies, to manufacturing companies, that they will make their teats as close to the breast, because none of them are. And so in that breath, your baby will not attach to the bottle in the same way as it attaches to a breast. The action is completely different, and they've got to learn to do that. I saw a baby in clinic today, and it had one bottle, just a little sort of end of comment on that one. It had 1 or 2 bottles, and it went on breast strike. It just could not cope with the change in flow. So just be wary that some babies don't care what goes in their mouth. They really don't care, and they swap between the two without noticing. Some babies, you give one bottle and they just will not breastfeed again. So just be very aware that it can happen, that they can get flow confused with the flow from the bottle and from the breast. It's very different. The flow in the bottle is very fast all the time, and the flow in the breast is fast, then gets slower. And babies can get very fussy with that, and also they have to suck a few times on the breast to get the milk to let down, and they get used to that suck, and then you get that little drips of milk, and then suddenly you get the let down coming in. When they have a bottle, they get the flow immediately, and so they get used to that if they have bottles, and then they get cross at the breast because they don't get it, and they fall asleep because nothing's coming straight away, and they stop breastfeeding. So it isn't without its drawbacks, but as I say, some babies just don't care what goes in their mouth, and they're very, very happy to move between whatever. But other babies are very sensitive to it, and 1 or 2 bottles and they really stop breastfeeding well. So just to be aware of that, we say about 6 weeks to introduce a bottle, so you're doing it about the right time. And if you have to give one, then it's very important that you can get that for your baby if you're going back to work, or you've got to go into hospital, or you've got to be somewhere else where somebody has to look after your baby for you. Just be aware that it's not always without problems. So, but I would get somebody else to try first, as Alex said, and don't buy an expensive teat that will make that is guaranteed to be like a breast, because it's not going to be.
Nothing's like a breast, as opposed to a breast.
But try several different teats, because different shapes suit different babies' mouths. So one size doesn't fit all.
Alice has come back. She's the lady who's got a baby that's been on antibiotics. She said he has got runny stools, but not green, and he has got a red bottom. So obviously, that gut flora changes, and it can impact on their bottoms as well. So we'll obviously put a barrier cream on to keep it clean as much as you can, and hopefully it will clear up quite quickly. And if it doesn't, have a chat with your GP.
And if you've got some time where it's warm now, put them on a mat, you know, on a mat that they can kick their legs on without a nappy if they've got sore bottom. That sometimes just lets them have a bit of a breather without the nappies on. You know, the disposable nappies are quite absorbent, but for that reason they've got, you know, lots of absorbent chemicals in them, and that can sometimes exacerbate soreness as well. So having time without a nappy on when it's warm like this is great. They can just kick their legs and you know, don't worry about them pooing or peeing if they've got you know, a waterproof mat or something underneath them, washable mat.
And she's thanked us for our advice. Charlotte has said, Alicia can't wait to meet us both. Can you, and also you can both have a cuddle with my new baby next year. Oh, that's so tempting.
Exciting.
Helen has come back. Hadn't had the tongue-tied training tips. Definitely give that a try, thank you. We'll keep offering feeds even when no cues, and hope we get a latch even if it doesn't really feed. Also, well equipped with all the humidifiers and snuffle babes, saline drops and nasal aspirators after having
fantastic.
a toddler in nursery, aka germ factory. Also, where this bug came from. Is there a good bad time to introduce a bottle after a tongue tie cut? I don't want to add any additional risk to our EBF journey, but I'm due to be a bridesmaid mid-August and prefer to not have to take him down the aisle attached to the boob.
That goes back to the last thing that we were just talking about, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where you might have to go somewhere, and it does. I think if you can give it a couple of weeks before you introduce a bottle with a tongue tie, that will help, just so that it can heal really well. But all sucking is helpful with a tongue tie. It does, you know, it's good physio. But breastfeeding, if you're wanting to do that, I would try not to introduce dummies or anything. Partly because of the infection risk, you know, if they're dummies, and also, you know, just don't tie them out if you put a dummy in their mouth, because it, you know, they spend a lot of time suckling and they don't get the food if they're too tired to suckle again. So I would say keep with the breast for as long as you can before you introduce the bottle. Let it heal. It's about 10 days.
I do get why you don't want to go down the aisle with a baby on the breast. But
it's not easy, is it? That's very brave. But you'll look gorgeous.
Yeah.
You'll be blooming with oxytocin.
So good luck with that, Helen. Amy's come back to say thank you, and Sarah said thank you so much. I must just be out on the timing now. I think about it. We'll try that, and if it doesn't work, I'll give you a call. Do give us a shout. That's it for the moment, and
I think we're well over time, aren't we?
We're 39. We did start a couple of minutes late. It took us a little while. Thank you very much for all the questions that you've put through. As always, fabulous questions. And it's, you know, it's lovely that, you know, that people can feel that they can put questions up about the bottle feeding as well. As we said, you know, babies in this weather will be looking for additional fluids, and I think, you know, Kim, if you did want to give a bit of water, I think that would not be an issue. I think just something's appearing at the end. Charlotte said that Alicia's trying to show us her dancing while in her walker. She's doing Baby Shark. And Helen's come back perfect. Thank you so much for all your help again. Let's hope the oxytocin disguises the dark rings from lack of sleep. Wow.
Oh,
I'm sure you'll look
beautiful. You can use makeup for that, and nobody will ever
Yeah.
know. They'll say you look gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. That's been a great range of questions, and thank you to one and all.
And enjoy the heat, because I think it's going to cool down again. So don't wish it away.
And as I think the main point to take away from this was, as Naomi was saying, don't keep waiting. Think I'll wait another day. I'll wait another day. If you are having problems with feeding, it might just be that you have a conversation with us on the phone, and that might be all that you need. So do by all means give us a call. We are here. We work 6 days a week. We're normally here Monday to Saturday. So you know, we will answer your calls. We may not be able to answer it straight away because we might be on the wards or in breastfeeding clinic, but we will get back to you as quickly as we can. And yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, one and all.
Have a good week. Save your questions up again for next week. We love them. Bye-bye from us.